Hey guys, welcome. It's 7 o'clock and my name is Jacqui Lewis and I'm the clinical nutritionist at BN Multi, just up in the corner there. And each week we meet on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. and we talk about all sorts of different bits and pieces with relationship to weight loss surgery, nutrition, ongoing health, exercise, you name it, we're on it. So catch us each Tuesday night in the group that we run, the BN Bariatric group. We have a number of chances during the week for you to add your weight loss surgery related questions as well. And from those questions, we collate those and in the live, I go through and answer them to the best of my ability. If I can't answer them or it's not an appropriate forum to answer your questions, I'll always give you some advice as far as where you might look for that information. A lot of the topics we cover in the live sessions are also extended upon in our weekly e-news, which you can subscribe to from the front page of the bnmulti.com website. So over the week, you should get a whole peppering of great and relevant evidence-based content that answers a lot of your questions with regard to your health after weight loss surgery. All of the previous live recordings are posted on the Australian Weight Loss Surgery podcast website, so you won't miss an episode. And if you're just new to our group or to our live sessions, you will find all of the backdated issues on the Australian Weight Loss Surgery podcast.com, where you'll also find the podcasts. And they are another avenue to explore as far as all things bariatric goes. In the podcast, I've spoken to surgeons and dietitians and patients who've sharing the same experience as you. And basically, overall, we aim to give you a massive collection of really supportive information to help you along with your journey. So without further rambling, this week, we're talking regain. I'll go through regain. I'll go through the poll each week in the group. We also run a poll on the topic that we're discussing to find out where you're all at and whether you want to know about regain. And it turns out you do, which is good. And so let me just share my screen and I'll go through the results of the poll. Share screen, share the second screen. So we talked about regain in the group and we asked, have you experienced regain after weight loss surgery? We had a number of responses, which is great. And I think it's wonderful that you're all participating and giving us your feedback because it really helps us to direct the content of our of everything we do. Basically, it's important that we're providing you with what you need. So 87 people said, no, I've only recently had surgery, so I'm still losing weight, which is great. 79 votes said, no, I haven't had any regain, but I've plateaued. And I wonder how far along those participants are. 56 votes said, yes, it's something I'm really struggling with. 18 said, I've yo-yoed a little bit, gaining small amounts here and there. And 8 said, yes, I have gained back a large amount of my original weight. So overall, we had 87 who are in the early stages of the journey. We had 80 who have hit a plateau, and we had another 60 roughly that are struggling with regain, and a percentage of those who have gained back a large portion of their original weight. So it is an issue that can rear its head perhaps 18 months, 2 years, 3 years down the track. Depends. And the reason that it can happen is varied, and it is very much dependent on a lot of the habits you create in the early stages after your surgery. So I know I probably say it every week, but these 87 people who've just had surgery and are still losing weight, they are the people who should be really also very vigilant with learning really good food habits, changing their relationship with food, making sure that we understand why we need to eat the way we do after weight loss surgery, and how to recognize when either bad habits are slipping back in, or if you're, maybe eating more portion than you should. So the first 12 months we call the honeymoon period, because weight's falling off and everyone's commenting, we hope, and you're feeling really good. And because you have a lot to lose at that point, any kind of deficit and the metabolic change that the surgery provides you will certainly, definitely most likely guarantee you some form of weight loss. And so that's the time also to capture, good habits and start to educate yourself on, different foods and why we maybe do protein first, and what is a carbohydrate, and which sort of carbohydrates would be a healthy choice, and how much of them. Because later on is when, probably around about the 12 to 18 month mark, is when for a majority of people, the hunger sensation will return. So it's then that you need to rely on everything you did in the first early stage, when things were a little less, when you're feeling less hungry. So you were less tempted, I suppose, in a lot of ways. And this is when the hunger returns. This is when those habits of snacking and grazing and eating larger portions can start to slip in. One of the key things to do is to make sure you're sticking to the rules, that they're not just a 12-month period where the rules apply. For the rest of your time, you need to concentrate on a high protein diet with low GI carbs and some discretionary foods that you enjoy maybe on the weekends. So it's really going back to that. Once you've established the weight loss that you're looking for and you're maintaining your current situation, that's when you might look at an 80-20 rule. Like 80% of the time you stick with a portion on a bariatric plate that contains a good serving of protein, some carbohydrates, and some healthy fats. And then maybe 20% of the time, which is not every day, every weekend, it might be 2 meals a week. You get to play around and have a bit of fun with things. So it's not behavior that is uncommon. It's behavior that healthy people generally follow as a rule. So I do hear a lot of bariatric patients going, oh, why do I have to do this? And I never used to have to worry about how much protein I had, and now I've had surgery, I have to do all of this stuff. But healthy people do these things as well, whether they've had surgery or not. And this is what is the key to maintaining good health and uncovering your vitality and the actual, life force that you have and may have not experienced for many, many years. So whilst you will feel much better because you are losing weight, there's always this percentage that you could feel even better if diet and supplementation are on point. So it's something to think about. If you are one of the 87 people who said they're in the early stages, this is just a way of letting you know how important this first part of the journey is. And looking at this 79 people who said, no, I haven't experienced any regain, but I'm plateauing. There's a varying reasons for that as well. A couple of those might be that if you're plateauing and there's not a lot more weight, you're not losing weight on a regular basis, it may be that you're getting close to your ideal. The more weight you have to release, of course, it will be likely to be more, it's likely to be easier. We always talk about those last 5 kilos because they're the hardest to lose, because the body's more reluctant to let go when there's not an absolute surplus of body fat to let go of. So it does certainly slow down. I mean, rapid weight loss in the first period after weight loss surgery is what we're looking for, but it's not sustainable, and it becomes more regulated as time goes on. So a plateau It may be something to be concerned about. It might not be, because if you're weighing yourself, say you're 18 months out of surgery, you've done really well, you've had progressive weight loss and you've been quite happy until this point, but you're noticing that your weight is stabilizing. Two things could be happening. Is that, yes, you are not losing more weight, and maybe that needs to be addressed. But in the other thing that might be happening is that once you get to a certain point where you've lost the majority of the surplus body fat that you wanted to get rid of, you're likely to be more active. You're also likely to be carrying more muscle than you have in the past. So a plateau, if you've lost weight consistently and you start going to the gym and you're doing a lot of weights training, or you're strengthening your body in some way, you might notice that the scales stop moving as rapidly as they did, because you'll be putting on muscle. So when we look at the difference between muscle and fat, they're totally different in density. So muscle, if you've got, say, a handful of muscle and a handful of fat, the handful of muscle will weigh 3 times as much as the fat will. So when you're looking at weight on the scales, say 18 months after surgery, when you are more active, please don't be disappointed if you're training really, really hard at the gym, or whatever you've chosen to do as your outlet for activity. Make sure you're tracking your body composition, so the parts that make up you, not just what you weigh on the scales, because that could be anything. So looking at maybe getting a body scan, or we sell on our website, on the BN Multi website, we've got the body composition scales, which are a fantastic gauge of what is changing. So at least you get on the scales, and if you're 100 kilos, but you've put on 2 kilos of muscle, you'll notice that, and the scales will tell you what's changed. So that way you're getting a better understanding of what your body comprises of, and you're not so hung up on what you weigh, which is, it can be pretty detrimental mentally if you're feeling frustrated because the scales aren't moving. And we all think the scales should move, but not always. They don't. So look at measuring yourself. Take a waist measurement maybe once a month, just keeping track on that. If you're in more of like a maintenance stage, I always check waist measurement just to get an idea of, are we tracking well? Is the waist measurement increasing or decreasing? What's going on? So looking at the next section, 56 folks said, yes, it's something I've been really struggling with. And I'd also love to know how far along this group of participants are as well. When regain is happening, it's a time to take a step back and a really honest look at what's happening. Are you more stressed than you've been for a while? Because that will often slow down fat loss. Are you sleeping? If you're not sleeping very well, you'll find that fat loss will slow down completely, if not stop. And some people who are really stressed and not sleeping will find that they will gain weight kind of no matter what they do, because the body is in a pretty inflamed state with lots of stress hormones, which are actually increasing your blood glucose levels. So having a look at what's changed. If you've been traveling along beautifully and you've got to 18 or 2 years down the track and suddenly something changes, it's time to step back and go, okay, what am I doing that's different? What am I not doing that I was doing when weight was falling off? And is there anything there? Has my situation changed? Am I snacking in between meals on things I shouldn't be? Am I drinking more alcohol than I should be, or drinking soft drinks or whatever it is? But looking at what's crept back in, that could be the key factor. So I always recommend doing a food diary, having a look at, okay, I'm going to get serious about this. I need to kind of reset my mindset and my approach to this process of becoming the best version of me that I possibly can. And the best way to do that is to take a snapshot. So write down everything you eat. Don't do it in an app. Just write it on a piece of paper or in a book. Write down everything you've eaten for 4 or 5 days. and be honest with yourself, because until you can really sit and go, okay, what am I doing? What's changed? Is there anything that I know that I could review and that would help me to get to where I'm headed? Until you can do that kind of honest inventory, I think it's a really hard game to play. So looking at what your picture of those 5 days looks like, including one weekend. So always do 2 days, 2 weekdays, and 2 or 3 weekdays, and definitely do the weekend, because that's when all sorts of crazy stuff can happen. So do that. Take a snapshot of what you're eating. If you're really stuck and your regain is something that you really are certainly trying to work on, always take your food diary and take it back to your dietitian or your nutritionist. So if you can't find what's not working, take a study in this, 5 years or 6 years. Here's my diary. What do you think is going on? Because there's a lot that we can do as practitioners to actually see exactly what's happening. We can also recommend that you visit, and get a metabolic rate test. There's a whole lot of things give us a lot of answers as to what is going on. If you've got this incredibly clean living diet and everything's in a, your ducks are all in a row nutritionally, but your weight's going up, we would then look at, is thyroid an issue, or is something changed metabolically? Are you really stressed? How do we then get you back to that kind of functioning stage where you're feeling healthy and your body's going to start letting go again? So how much of a shortcut you can take when you ask someone who can really have a good clinical look at what's happening for you as well, because stabbing around in the dark often is even more frustrating. And you're like, oh, just try this, I'll just do these shakes for a week, and I'll just put that in, and I'll just do keto, and then, oh no, that didn't work. So you might have something else that's going on that we could just pinpoint really quickly and save you all that frustration and even more weight gain. So my other thing I'm going to say is, when you notice weight is regaining, get in quick, and don't wait until you're 20 kilos down the track and you go, I've regained 20 kg. Please, if you notice it happening and it's out of the norm, or that you want to have a better handle on things, or something has changed, the quicker you manage it, the better, and the more chance you have of getting rid of it and keeping it off that way as well. So it can be something that we don't want to talk about, and it can be something that's quite confronting to turn back up to your team and go, hey, I had this surgery a couple of years ago and now here I am, I'm regaining weight. And never ever should you feel like you've failed, because you haven't. You've come this far and you've made these choices, and you've made incredible changes to your lifestyle and the way you think about food and that sort of stuff. So there's never a failure, and you should never feel that you would be being judged for regaining weight, because it's certainly and definitely a thing. And that's why we're here, to help you to eliminate those problems as soon as we can, so they don't blow out into other health issues down the track. So then we've got the 18 who yo-yoed a little bit, gaining small amounts here and there. And this one is probably something that most of you have done up until you had surgery, doing every diet under the sun, and trying this and trying that, which is why I said, if you are regaining and you're not quite sure what's going on, please don't go back to that dieting mentality of trying all these different solutions and a sleeve reset and a shake diet, because that's not a healthy lifestyle. And basically, for the longer term, that's what you need to establish, is looking at, is this something that we need to address from a psychological perspective? Is it your relationship with yourself or your food, or is it just simply, could it be a metabolic issue? So we need to nut out exactly which approach we need to take to actually get you back on track. So yo-yoing can show that, a lot of the time it can show that we're trying, but then we're falling off. And it would just be nice to find the key to not falling off and then getting back on again, and just have that consistent approach. A lot of the time we yo-yo when we get to the point where we feel really good, and then we go, great, I've done that, and now little things will start sneaking in, and those it'll creep up to, maybe I used to have a snack meal on a Friday night and treat myself, to when I feel fantastic and I've lost a lot of weight, I might have 2 of those meals in a week, and then I'll start to have a drink with those meals. So you can see how quickly, one of the 80% 20 rule starts to then escalate into 2 meals a week, and then 2 meals with 2 drinks every 2 nights a week. So if you are yo-yoing, it is also helpful to get some support on also finding out what that's about. I don't necessarily subscribe to shakes as a way of losing the regain, because what happens when you stop drinking shakes and you need to eat food again? So a lot of the approach should be geared towards education and instilling new habits and finding joy in foods that are healthy for you and are supportive of your health and your weight loss. So 8 votes said, yes, I've gained back a large amount of my original weight. And it's wonderful that we have such a group where people can share this kind of information, and that we can support you on that as well. But like I said before, don't let it go on too long before you go and see someone, because turning up when you're 20 kilograms overweight is a lot more to fix than it is when it's 5. So when you see that your weight is creeping up a little bit and you are convinced that you don't have control over that, always reach out. And that's why we have your surgical team and your professional team of dietitian and psychologist and that sort of thing, because that's the key, is looking at, okay, what's happened here? How do you feel about it? What do you think might be contributing to it? And then painting a big picture and making a plan. So looking at, I guess, monitoring, being your own coach, monitoring what's happening and whether you're happy about it or not. So that's regain. The reasons for regain are mixed. Like I said, they could be metabolic, they could be stress related. It could be that there's been a transference. Some people who have had addictive behaviors around food, like binge eating disorder or bulimia, that kind of stuff, sometimes we see that there is a transference over to something else, and it can be alcohol, or it could be other things that are very high in calories. So when we don't have the room to fit in a volume of food to deal with our emotions around food, we then will kind of channel it off into something else that will fit in there. And sometimes it's drinking, which is a really high calorie habit. It's also an appetite stimulant. So not only will you drink those calories, but in the next couple of days afterwards, you'll eat a stack more food because you'll be hungry as well, and all your blood glucose levels are dysregulated again. So anything that's quirky, that's out of your normal and that's changed and you have noticed, it would be a great thing to talk with someone about at the earliest you can. And that way it's just like a blip. Then it's not like a catastrophe of 20 or 30 kilos of weight regain, and then you've got to deal with that. It's just more of a, whoa, hang on a minute. And that's what life is. It's like, whoa, hang on a sec, we'll just regroup and then we'll get back on the wagon again. And it is very much life. It's very much how we work and how we do family and how we do relationships. We travel along sometimes really beautifully, and then other times we go, whoop, we've hit a bump in the road. So don't take it too personally, and look at, how can I be at the best effect for this issue that I'm facing as well. So that's regain. We'll also cover that in our e-news this week. And there's a blog on that, and there's some great resources and other reading that you might do as well. So if you don't get the e-news, please subscribe to that one. It comes out every Wednesday at about 11. And you can subscribe on the front page of our bnmulti.com website. You'll find the link for that. The other thing I'll point out while I'm talking about the front page of our website, in and regain is our recipe books that are free to download. So on the front page, you'll find a tab called Bariatric Recipes. And in there's some free downloadable ebooks. So if you're sick and tired of eating the food that you have been eating and you notice that you're off track a little bit, you can cook from those books and pretty much be guaranteed that you're eating the right foods, high protein, low GI carbs, lots of plants in there as well. So that's our gift to you. I'll stop the share. There we go. And I'll go through some questions that turned up in the group this week, which were helpful. And these are just the comments underneath the regain post that we did, which also I found were very interesting and shows just how differently our bodies respond to things as well. So Donna said that she regained during pregnancy, and I'm paranoid I won't get the weight off again. I think I stretched my pouch while I was pregnant. I could eat so much food and was told to eat a lot by the doctors, and there's good reason for that. The baby is 5 weeks old. Yay, congratulations. And I'm 10 kilos up. It'll come off at some point. When you're chasing that little toddler around, you'll notice what happens. Got some restriction back, but not what it was previously. The dietitian told me to not try to lose weight while I'm breastfeeding, which is absolutely great advice. So I feel like I'm a bit in limbo. Prior to pregnancy, I had plateaued for a very long time. So two things I'm going to say is while you're pregnant, you have an abundance of a hormone called relaxin. And I would have to do my research on whether relaxin actually would affect the tissues of your pouch. But relaxin's job is to let the pregnant woman's body give and help your muscles to stretch so that you can pass a baby through your pelvis. And so I would need to check whether that would affect the stretchiness of the tissues in your pouch, and that might be why you'd fit more food in at that time. And it could be Mother Nature's way of helping to feed your growing baby. So I might not be right, but I think there's a lot that could be in that. And also, yeah, your body has such a huge job to do to build a skeleton and to build a brain and to build a spinal cord and to build arms and legs and that sort of stuff. And I think that should never be underestimated. And it's interesting how we're all so fixated on, how am I going to rebound after this baby's born? Just enjoy this time and feed that baby. And you'll find that generally the weight will come off. To breastfeed a baby takes about 500 or 600 at least calories per day. So that's 500 calories that you can, safely know that you're utilizing. And so you do need to remember that those are 500 calories you need as well. And good food and lots of omega-3s in the diet and lots of fruit and veggies and, good protein and that sort of stuff is only going to do the both of you a world of good. So what I would say is 5 weeks in, just concentrate on keeping well, resting when you can, and focus on just being healthy. And you'll generally find that when you're not focusing on weight, but you're focusing on health and the health of your child, things will fall into place pretty quickly. And yeah, if you can get some sleep, that'll also help. So congratulations. It's always fantastic to hear, because a lot of people are having the surgery so that they can help to be more fertile. So it sounds like a great end result, and something that, again, is a journey. So, 5 weeks after baby's born and 10 kilos, you're doing okay. Joanne said her regain started when my gallbladder started to go really rotten. It continued for a short while after removal, and then weight then remained the same for about 15 months. Now, since November, without having changed anything, I've dropped 9 kilos. I'm still 13 kilos of my regain to lose, but my body has always had a mind of its own. Maybe my body has decided it's well enough again to start shedding weight. And I would absolutely agree with what you've said there, is that when there's stuff going on, and when there's inflammation, or there's one part of our body that's or a system that is not functioning well, you will find that it's busy doing other things. So when your gallbladder is unhappy, you've got a whole lot of stuff going on with your digestion, and particularly after a weight loss surgery. So yes, I would agree that when we are not well, we will not release because we've got other stuff to focus on, and that's kind of superfluous after that. So well done you. It sounds like you're on the right path. And I think also after gallbladder surgery, if you do find that there are more intolerances and that sort of stuff, it will change your diet again as well, because the gallbladder's job is to release the bile that helps to break down fats. So if you've got no gallbladder, and you're eating a really, if you are including too many fats in the diet, you'll really notice that you'll feel bloated, and you can have like that, we call it steatorrhea. It's like fatty stools which are pale and pasty and sticky, and that's a sign of fat malabsorption, which some people get after the surgery anyway, because that's what the surgery's job is also. But it's certainly a sign. So I'm glad to see, Joanne, that you're back on your trajectory of losing more weight. Adriana said, I lose and gain about 1 to 2 kilos a week. And my quick answer in my head would be, is there a food intolerance there perhaps, or some reason that you're storing fluid? Because generally we'll lose 1 kilo a week of body fat, but often, that's for someone who hasn't had surgery. But you'll find that if weight is fluctuating, even some people say overnight I've gained 2 kilos, and that certainly can't be body fat that's just crept on overnight. It would be more likely to be fluid from something that's going on that you're responding to. So I look at maybe gluten or dairy or something that you're not dealing with very well, and that will set off a cascade in your immune system, and the result of that will be fluid storage. The other thing that will do that is a high refined carbohydrate diet. Every gram of carbohydrates you eat has the capacity to store 9 molecules of water, which obviously weighs something, doesn't it? So that's why you'll find too, when you go on the very low calorie diet, which is more protein, less carbs, the weight loss in the first 2 weeks is huge, and it's just water, a lot of it. And it's just that the carbs in the body will be storing lots of water, which will take up space, one, and B, make you feel heavier. The other thing when you're gaining and losing weight rapidly, helped you, and maybe if that resonates with you, you can have a look at either just taking a few foods out of the diet that you think might be the culprit, and then seeing what happens, and then when you put them in, having a look at what the result is from that as well. It's like we remove it and then we challenge it just to see what is the problem. Jody said it's hard when you work out and put on weight on the scales, and the trainer said you can't measure muscle. So yeah, that's what I was saying before about don't get too hung up on the scales, more have a look at what you're made of. So measurements, even your measurements aren't always a good gauge if you're training weights. But yeah, looking at body composition, perhaps looking at those M-Pod scan machines that you see in different in different shopping centres and stuff now. But ask your trainer, who should be well versed in how to measure body composition, even with the body fat calipers and that sort of stuff. Belinda said, I plateaued for weeks, but I'm not doing myself any favors with poor eating choices, but still trying to chip away. But 40 kilos in a year with having a broken foot as well as is a great incentive to keep going. Absolutely. If you're still losing weight and you've got 1 foot in the air, you've done pretty well. But also looking at, you're not doing yourself any favors, and then going, okay, what do I need to do here? Can I do this on my own? Can I make these changes and stick to them? Do I need more help? What sort of help do I need? So always looking at that sort of thing. Elizabeth said, I recently restarted I recently started regaining. Trauma and emotional eating are primary reasons, and I couldn't cook for a couple of months. So yeah, absolutely. Anything that upsets our apple cart from an emotional perspective often will send our food and exercise out the window as well. So that's kind of where we look at our levels of self-care and whether they get, just general maintenance of our health gets totally put aside when something happens. And if it does, is that helping us or hurting us? So yes, some situations there's absolutely no way we can keep, cooking a nice dinner every night because we've got, loved ones in hospital or something's happened that we just can't manage that. But what are the plans around that when those times do come up? Do we just throw the whole thing out the window and then, 5 or 6 months later, after we've made every bad choice for 6 months, do we then go, okay, it's my turn now? Or do we look at it and go, how can I still do all of this stuff? And how much better would I cope with a stressful situation if I was still being looking after my own self-care as best as I possibly can? So looking at things like that, if you can't cook for a couple of months, what can you do? Where can you get some kind of pre-prepared, relatively healthy kind of meal from? There's a whole lot of online meal delivery services, for example. We're a busy family, and we use 2 nights a week. We use the home, we cook it, still prepare it all. But I use that as a cheat, so I don't have to think about going out and getting food and coming back in again. So those kind of things, I'm not saying that I don't know your situation, but I'm just saying these are the things we need to look at, is when emotions are upset and our whole routine is thrown out, how can we look for the opportunity to still maintain healthy living as our thing that we do, instead of saying I'll be healthy when this is over. Being healthy while it's happening is going to also mean that you cope so much better as well. And so what else have we got? A couple of questions here. I was sleeved on the 28th of January. And apart from constipation and not being able to eat real food, I've been losing steadily 17 kilos since Jan, so that's good. For the last 3 weeks, I've had chronic diarrhea to the point it's become passive incontinence. I feel sick, and I have been sick, and I'm giddy with pains in the lower half of my stomach. I don't have a gallbladder or any female bits anymore, so it's nothing to do with those. It could be to do with the lack of them. I eat and drink pretty much nothing, as everything makes me sick. Sounds like a really hard time, and I think we did mention that there was other comments underneath this one, and we did talk about, really looking at what's going on and going back to your team and seeing if there's anything kind of from a mechanical perspective, is there any stricture or any twist or something going on there that's impacting your ability to just keep food down, and also looks like to digest food and and incorporate enough fiber and enough nutrition to keep the stools actually functioning well. So I would love to hear, Nikki, if you're out there. I'd love to know how that went. And I think I remember asking in the group that it'd be great if you could check in and let us know how you're going, and see if they found anything, and then work back from there. Vanessa asked about milk. Which do you have and why? I was told by a dietitian to drink soy milk as it's higher in protein, and that almond milk is pretty much sugar water. Nod. Yes. However, almond milk has lower calories. Oh, calories, my dear Lord. And so, soy milk I use in my coffee. I haven't come across many other sleeved people who use soy milk, so I was just curious. I think it's good advice. I think soy milk has a lot more to offer if you're looking for a milk alternative. When you have a look at the ingredients on the box of almond milk or rice milk or whatever it is, you'll see that there's about 3 or 4% almond in there, lots of water, lots of sugar. So some people get dumping syndrome from them. B, not much to offer as far as nutrition goes, and certainly not going to fill you up. Almond milk, that is. And C, who's making it, and why would it be a good idea to replace dairy if it's not an intolerance? So dairy's got a lot to offer if you don't react to dairy. It's got a lot of minerals in it, obviously, and it's a good protein source, and it's easy to get. So that's always good. Soy milk, I always look at who's making that as well, and make sure you get a really good quality organic soy that has no GMO in it and all that sort of stuff. So the ones like Bon Soy is very good. Aldi do a good organic soy, and yes, it will keep you fuller for longer. The only time I don't use soy is if there's any like polycystic ovarian syndrome or endometriosis, that sort of thing, because there are, depends on how much of it you're using, but there are phytoestrogens in there which can give you a bit of grief. And I don't recommend young boys drinking much soy milk in their diet either. The other thing I was going to say about soy is something else, is look at what's in it. Sometimes they're fortified with, other oils, and crazy stuff gets put in there to make it feel nice. So yeah, always look for the cleanest form you possibly can and include that. So I hope that's been helpful. I've also was going to say, I did a blog on all the milks a while back. So if you go onto our site, and just at the top where there's a search window, you can just Google the word milk, not Google it, but search for it on our site. And generally, if I've written anything about that topic, it will come up and show you. So if ever you've got any questions, you'll generally find the answers on the BN Multi site. Dimi asked a question. Has anyone had sugar intolerance since having surgery? I'm nearly a year post-op, and I've noticed that I eat anything with sugar in it, I get sickly, nauseous, headache, aching body, fatigue, like I'm hungover and I need to sleep. It's a good sign that you're, it's almost like a dumping syndrome, that one. And it's usually because it's a sharp spike in your blood glucose levels, and your body's going to go, whoa, let's get insulin on the scene as quickly as we possibly can. So it can make you feel quite sick. If you've had a bypass, it's a higher risk of dumping, because you'll find that the sugar will go straight through your pouch and straight into the small intestine, where all hell can break loose pretty quickly. So there are a few different types of dumping syndrome, and there is one called late dumping, which means that it's not an instant reaction to the food. So it can be even 3 or 4 hours after people start to feel really ordinary. Yours, I would say, is something to do, it's not necessarily a sugar intolerance. It is that the surgery brings about changes in the way you manage food overall, but sugar is one of them. And it can mean that they don't, simple sugars won't agree with you. The sickly, nausea, headachy, aching body, fatigue can be a sign that your pancreas is really having to work hard to manage that really sharp incline in your blood glucose levels. The hungover, wanting to sleep, is like a food coma. So it's a sign that something's having to work really hard and you just can't stay awake while you do it. So it's usually like a parasympathetic nervous system thing, or, it's like after a big meal at Christmas where you've had lots of sugar and then lots of meat and then lots of pudding and some alcohol, and your body's like, I just can't do all of this at the moment, I'm going to sleep. So it's interesting when some foods can make you feel like you just want to go to sleep straight away. If that's happening also after just a standard meal, it can be that your digestion's just working so hard to process what you're eating. So that's all the questions, and probably a good thing because we're running out of time. So this week we've got 2 winners. Let me share my screen again. 2 winners. Anne Bell, sorry, not sharing yet. Anne Bell, sharing now? Yeah. So Anne Bell is 4 months down and lost 35 kilos in 4 months. The weight loss is amazing, but what I treasure most is the mental change. I now feel down if I can't go for my daily walk, and that's massive. That is massive. Look at you. That's amazing. So congratulations to you, Anne. You've done a beautiful job in such a short space of time. And the walking is so good for you too, on many different levels. I forgot to say, this week's winners, if I mention your name and that you've won a prize, you won a digital scale, like I was just talking about, measure your weight, also all your different parts of your body. So body fat, total body water, weight of your skeleton, your visceral fat, which is like your internal fat stores. It also links up to an app, so you can keep checking your progress and it'll graph it all for you on the app as well. So it does weight and a whole lot of other different measurements. And I would suggest only doing that about once every week, 2 weeks, just so that it's not becoming something that we have to do every single day. And we just keep it as a guide, not as a, oh my God, the scales didn't move, it's going to be a crap day. So that's the great prize. And with it, you get our Staying on Track kit, which is awesome too. It's the BN Healthy Eating Planner, which is a magnet that goes on your fridge. You can plan out all of your meals for the week. And on that is a shopping list with heaps of great protein-rich snack suggestions. So you write down all your meals on the days of the week, and then you put your ingredients that you're going to need for those on the shopping list, and then you tick all the boxes of the protein-rich snacks you want, and off you go to the supermarket. The book is the 5 things to stop, to start, and to think to prevent weight regain. So pretty good time this week to read that book. That's got 5 different things for each topic that will help to maintain healthy habits and, you know, really change what you do from a activity perspective, and also from a mindset point of view as well. So I think it's great. And the calendar's great too. It's got the monthly challenge in it, and you keep it on your desk, and then you've got everything top of mind. So you'll be surrounded by amazing things that will help you succeed. So well done. You've done a great job so far. Next is Jade. She's going through my old winter clothes is a good feeling. I could have stepped into one side of my old pants. I'm feeling so good about my non-sleeve victory, loving the new me. And gosh, look at that. Isn't that pretty incredible that you could fit one person into one side of those pants now and it's the same person? It's amazing. So congratulations to you. And we will be digging out the winter clothes again soon. My goodness, it's changed so quickly. So also, Jade, you have also won the same prize as Anne did. And if you could send us an email to support@bnmulti.com, we will, we will send you your prize. And I'm down to the end of my notes, which tells me I'm done. And so I hope you have a wonderful week. And next week, we are back on Tuesday night talking about stuff. And please keep an eye out for the newsletter on Wednesday. It'll help to solidify everything I've just said as well. Thanks. I'll go back to your, I'm sure you've got questions in the post here, which I can't see. So I usually go back and answer those. I'll write them in for you as well. So please post any questions you've got in the comments below. Thank you. Have a great week. Now I can never shut this thing up. Where are we? It won't let me close it. Meeting controls. Oh, because I'm still sharing. Stop sharing. Yay. All right. Thanks for joining us. Have a lovely week.